Hello and welcome to Variation 38, Sub-Variations 5 through 9. This is the second video on the sub-variations, and I'm going to make a total of 3 videos on the sub-variations because it's better to divide them up a little bit. I thought one video would just be too long and unpractical to work with. Sub-variation 5 is the same as variation 34, sub-variation 1, but it's upside down. The slur is alternately on the down bow and on the up bow. Stay very close to both strings when you play this sub-variation. No large string crossings, very close to both strings. Very small and precise articulation, and make sure you don't use too much bow for the slur. Very little bow for the slur, because if you use too much bow for the slur, that will take you away from where the spiccato works best. That won't work. So you need very little bow for the slur. Very little bow for the slur. The movements are quite small because you're staying very close to both strings. Don't bounce too high. And with the down bow slur, that's not such a problem. We have gravity on our side, so that's a bit easier to stop the bow from bouncing. The up bow slur is a little bit more challenging because we're working against gravity. And here again, I would recommend this image of the spade going into sand, feeling the resistance of the sand. Feel the resistance of the string on the up bow as you go into the string. You need more awareness for the up bow slurs. So concentrate on the up bow slurs and concentrate on feeling the resistance of the string as your bow goes into the string. Sub-variation 6 is the same as in variation 34, sub-variation 2, but upside down again. Now the slurs follow more rapidly after each other. The principle is exactly the same as in sub-variation 5. The slurs are alternately on a down bow and on an up bow. Just like in sub-variation 5, we have to stay very close to both strings. Make sure we don't bounce too high because that just makes the slurs more difficult. And again, the down bow slurs are less problematic because we have gravity on our side. For the up bow slurs, put a lot of awareness into the first note of the up bow slurs and feel the resistance of the string as you go into the string. This is the enlarged version of the movement. It helps a lot to practice this slowly because you can put more awareness onto the first note of the up bow slurs. That's where your awareness has to be. Again, make sure you don't use too much bow for the slurs because that will take you away from where the spiccato works best. Sub-variation 7a is the same as we have in variation 34, sub-variation 4a. It's ricochet, but here it's upside down. The principle is the same as we have in sub-variation 3a. We have the down bow followed by 2 up bows, and the down bow has to give enough energy for the 2 up bows to come on their own. And again, we have to give quite a kick on the down bow, and that includes the change of direction. It's a good idea to do this in the air a couple of times to get the feeling of a strong kick with a change of direction being 1 action, not 2, because there's no time for that. It's 1 action. And the two up bows come on their own. They happen automatically. Play just one triplet a couple of times. Feel how that's just one action. And then you can do two triplets. It's a very passive bowing. We only do this down bow kick, the change of direction, and the two up bows. They are done by the bow. They happen automatically. It's just the down bows which we actively do. And then you add another one. And then once you've done 4 triplets, you can go on. Most important is that it is just one action and not 2 actions. If it doesn't work, usually it's because it's not one action. It's just the down bow, change of direction happens automatically, and the 2 up bows also happen automatically. Subvariation 7b is the same as we have in variation 34, subvariation 4b, but it's upside down again. And it's also the same principle as we have in these subvariations, subvariation 3b. We're starting each triplet with an up bow, and the ricochet down bows have to happen on their own. So the up bow has to have enough energy for the down bows to happen on their own. Subvariation 7a, we had the down bow kick with the 2 up bows happening on their own. Their gravity is on our side. That's a little bit easier. Here we have to do the kick on the up bow, and that has to have enough energy for the 2 down bows to happen. So we need to put more energy into the up bow, quite a lot more. So again, it can help to just do the up bows a few times. Because that's where your awareness needs to be. Just like when we do the down bow kick, the up bow and the change of direction is one action, like this. So do that in the air a few times. Notice that the movement can be a little bit bigger. That's fine. You might need to use a little more bow for this up bow ricochet, up bow with the 2 down bow ricochets, than for the down bow with the 2 up bows. It can be that a little bit more bow helps, but you have to try that out. Sometimes I find it helps me to use more bow, and sometimes I find it doesn't. It's such a passive bowing that every time one practices it, one's experimenting around with what helps, a little bit more bow or a little bit less bow. What is always the case is that this up bow has to have enough energy for the 2 down bows to happen, and that's more energy than when we do this on the down bow. Also, what is always the case is that the up bow and the change of direction must be one action. It can't be 2 actions. It can't be... That doesn't work, because you want the energy of the up bow to carry on into the 2 down bows happening on their own. So that has to be one action, the up bow and the change of direction, and then the 2 down bows just happen on their own. Practice again, just one triplet. Notice how you have to do this kick already going on to the next string. You can't go straight up because that will be... But that's not what we have. We have... So you're doing the kick going up as well as up bow. You're going towards the A string as well. And then you do 2. And then you do 3 and 4. And then you can go on. So again, you have to experiment a little bit with how much bow you use. Remember to do the kick not straight up, but direction A string. and you need quite a lot of energy, so be careful that you keep your shoulder relaxed, and straight after you've given the kick, also put relaxation back into your upper arm, because it's the upper arm which is giving the energy, and it can tense up easily, and then you'll be able to do perhaps 2 or 3 bars, but not the whole variation. So there you have to be careful to keep the shoulder relaxed and put energy into the up bow, and not too much strength. You're working with speed, so that does require a certain amount of strength, but make sure you always relax straight away afterwards. Subvariation 8 is the same as subvariation 4, but backwards. It's all spiccato, but give yourself some time to get used to this changed figure and practice it slowly a few times. Just to get used to this changed figure. When practicing this a bit slower, all the movements are a little bit bigger. The string crossings are a little bit bigger and you're bouncing a little bit higher. For speeding it up, the movements have to get smaller because you need very small string crossings, and don't bounce too high. Think horizontally more than vertically. The bow is staying very close to both strings, and I'm not bouncing very high. The bow hardly leaves the strings, so the movements become very small. Remember again to keep your upper arm and shoulder relaxed, because this is done by hand, wrist and fingers. And so it's very important that you don't tense up in the shoulder or in the upper arm, because again, you might be able to do a few bars, but you won't get through the whole variation. And very small, precise articulation. That's probably the most important thing one has to know. And very often one thinks, okay, spiccatos are bouncing, bowing. When I do it at this tempo, yes, I bounce quite high. But as soon as it gets faster, the bow hardly leaves the string. And you will notice you'll have more security in it, and it will also sound better if you make sure you don't bounce too high. Think horizontally more than vertically. Subvariation 9, we're combining bowings on the string with bowings off the string. We have 1 down bow détaché, then we have 3 notes slurred, and then we have spiccato. The down bow needs quite a bit of bow, because on the way back we have to get 3 notes in. So for bow division, you start exactly where you want to do the spiccato. Exactly here. Find out exactly the place where you want to do the spiccato. And then you use quite a lot of bow, comparatively lots of bow, for the down bow, because you need to get 3 up bows in, and you have to end up exactly here again. So if you're doing it slowly, quite a lot of bow for the down bow. As soon as you speed up, of course, you use a bit less bow. But it still feels as if one's using quite a lot of bow, because compared to everything we were doing before, we always had to do the slurs very, very small. We were staying exactly in the spiccato place, and now we're actually leaving the spiccato place, because on the up bow slur we have 3 notes and we need space for those. So even in tempo, when you're using very little bow, you're still feeling as if you're using more bow than you're normally using. Using a bit more bow for this down bow also helps stop the bow from bouncing because you're using quite a high bow speed compared to the up bow, because it's just one triplet eighth note, and on the up bow you're using 3 triplet eighth notes. So the down bow needs quite a lot of bow speed. So it's fast, slow, fast, slow. So that helps with stopping the bow from bouncing. Also, we're working, of course, with weight. Everything which happens on the string, we need a bit more weight, and then we have to become very light for the spiccato. So again, heavy, light, heavy, light. The wrist goes down for the heavy and up for the light. When you speed that up, the movement is much smaller. It will hardly be visible. But it still happens, and it can help to consciously lift your wrist for the spiccato. You're going down, you're also using more bow, and then you come back up again with your wrist. Very important again, very close string crossings, no further away from the adjacent string than absolutely necessary. Your bow is almost playing double stops. That's particularly important because of the slur. You want the slur to come off well, and that's best if you don't have big string crossing. That won't work, and you're moving too much mass, and that will force you to start using your arm, and the string crossings are done with hand, wrist and fingers. So very, very close string crossings, particularly here where you're slurring over the string crossings. Okay, that was the second video on the sub-variations of variation 38. I hope this is useful for you, and of course let me know if you have any questions, and happy practicing.